Metal Jesus here, and I am back again with Kelsey. How's it going?
Going pretty good. Thanks for having me. So today we're going to be talking about the Nintendo 3DS. It's one of my favorite systems. We're going to be doing a buying guide covering the hardware, the applications, accessories, and games, of course.
This is going to be so awesome. Let's take a look. We're going to start with the different models. Now, I have to admit, and you know this because we've done videos on this before, I get so confused. Like, it was confusing, right?
It is literally confusing, and not just like, oh, it's confusing to old men and parents and stuff.
Right.
But it's confusing in general because they put out a bunch of different models, but the very first one was just the 3DS. So right. This is a 3DS. It's what they put out for $250 in 2011. No one bought it for $250.
It bombed, right?
Yeah, totally. In fact, it bombed so hard, Iwata took a 50% pay cut.
And they lowered the price, and they had to give away games just to kind of keep people happy.
Yep. So there's the Ambassador program, which
right.
If you're really lucky and you find a used 3DS that's got Gameboy Advance games downloaded on it, you've got an Ambassador system.
Oh.
They don't have Gameboy Advance games anywhere else. They only gave these 10 away to people that were part of that $250 3DS club. Well, and some NES games.
I'm not totally surprised because I know when I first saw a 3DS at GameStop, I was like, I already have a DS. I love it, it's fine. And I wasn't really that impressed with the 3D because it was so easy to go off center. Like I was trying to play Street Fighter and I was like, there's no way I could do this. Like
right.
it just kept going out of focus. It was crazy.
That's a really good point. I mean, of course, it being called the 3DS, it has 3D. This is a 3D slider on it.
Right.
You can turn it all the way to, extreme 3D to just a little bit where like maybe it just pops out at you a little bit.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't use it. So
I knew you were going to say this because you don't use it and I do.
Yeah, but many people don't. And I have heard a lot of people say that they actually do, but I would still say the overwhelming majority of people don't. And it's kept a lot of people from buying these because they just hear the 3D in the name.
Yep.
And they go, well, I
don't care about that.
I don't need that.
But to your point about the slider, I use the slider all the time. And it's weird because some games, you're right, I don't need that extreme depth because my eyes do kind of wig out a little bit. And so, but I want a little bit of the 3D because I like the kind of, the fun factor of it. So I'll turn on a little bit.
Just a little bit. And I think a lot of people turn on the 3D like at first.
To check it out.
Just to be like, ooh, pretty, and then they turn it off.
Yeah.
So it's cool. I like the design of it too. Just I like that it has an analog stick. That was something that really needed to happen with the DS. And actually, when they were first developing this, they had a function where you could switch the positions of these in case you thought that it being up here was uncomfortable.
Oh.
I don't know. I guess that probably costs too much.
Yeah. Huh.
So yeah, this is the first version. It's cool. You can get these pretty cheap now, but personally, I find it a little bit small, which brings us to the 3DS XL.
Yes.
So there's a lot of different 3DS XLs, and I feel like this is, at least in America, the preferred
This
version.
is when I jumped in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is when I jumped in because they had a Yoshi one that was green, and I was like, okay.
And I've got the Animal Crossing one that looks like Pop-Tart. We have a lot of really cool limited edition ones in the States. There's also some really cool ones overseas, especially in Japan. They had a couple that you had to basically win a lottery for the chance to buy one.
Man.
So they had a lot like that. The rarest 3DSs in the world, there's a Mario, a Toad, and a Peach one. And it was a Club Nintendo. You had to enter into like a little lottery thing to see if you could have a chance to buy one of these super limited edition consoles. And they did that through the Pokemon Center as well for some of them.
I know, I was checking out the website, we've mentioned it before, consolecolors.com, and I was just amazed. I mean,
so many.
And I guess that gets to the point is that while this struggled initially, dropping the price really helped. And once they did that, I mean, it took off within a year, it seems like.
Oh yeah, totally. And I mean, now everyone has a 3DS,
exactly.
I feel like. And if you don't have one, you should get one. But they really didn't do anything different with this one. They just made it bigger.
Yeah.
I mean...
Which was kind of what I was looking for anyways.
Yeah.
So I was happy to jump in at this point. I was like, okay, now I can do it,
So then, there started being some issues with people saying that their kids were developing some eye strains and issues. So they put out a non-3D 3DS.
The 2.
Called the 2DS. So this, I personally find it kind of uncomfortable, but I know a lot of people who, like, this is their preferred way to play. It's kind of like a tablet, and it's similar. It can do basically all of the same things, except anything that would require 3D.
Yeah.
So,
which is really wild, because that was the big selling point of this device, was the 3D, right? It's the dream of the Virtual Boy. We're finally bringing it to the masses. And
they've been trying to do this 3D thing forever, and not just the Virtual Boy, all the way back to the Famicom. They had a 3D system for the Famicom. Yeah. And then they were developing one for the GameCube, and that was actually sort of shown off at E3, and then they were thinking about doing one for the Game Boy Advance. I mean, it's just, they've been trying to do this 3D thing forever, and most of us just turn it off.
Yeah.
Give it up, Nintendo. Don't care about 3D. But this is cool. It's really good for kids because you can't break the hinges. That was one of the issues with the original DS.
All my hinges are a little bit loose. Yeah.
Yeah, especially, if you drop it enough, you're going to start breaking off parts of the hinge, and it's just not going to work very well. So this is cool. Fun fact about this one, it's actually just one giant screen in here. If you take this apart, there's only one screen.
Which is probably cheaper for manufacturing, because this is significantly cheaper than the normal 3DS.
Yeah, they pretty much just took out anything that would make it expensive to, the 3D and 2 screens and that sort of thing. So all of those things. And it's got crappier sound as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there's that. And then we finally got what is the worst named console.
This is where I got confused.
Next to the Xbox One. This is the new 3DS. Now, God forbid you buy a used one. A used new 3DS. So we got this one
right here.
They
had 2 models of the new. So they had the XL, which is what that is.
Yes, and this is the one that we first got in the States. Now, Japan got this really cool one, which is just the regular new 3DS. What's really cool about this one is that it's got changeable faceplates. So you can actually take these off.
This is cool.
And swap it with another one. Now, we got this we got this in bundles. We got like an Animal Crossing one and a Pokemon one, and I think they just recently came out with a Mario one as well. You can't just go to the store and buy extra faceplates, whereas there's like 70 of them in Japan. So there's tons and tons, so I ended up importing a lot of mine.
Now, they improved this one significantly, though. So the cameras are a little bit better, I guess. I mean, I don't really use the camera that much. It's a faster processor.
Yes.
Which a couple games take advantage of, right?
Yeah, there's actually quite a few games that are new 3DS exclusives.
And then the thing that I noticed when I bought this was that the front-facing camera supposedly tracks your eyes or where you're focusing, and I noticed it immediately. So, the original version, if you kind of went off axis a little bit, the 3D went completely wonky. This one is smart. Like, it literally, I can sit on the couch and actually play games normally and still keep it in 3D. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And also the other big feature is the C-stick.
Yes.
The second analog stick.
Which is really just...
It feels like a pencil eraser.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a little nub, but it does work as a second analog stick. It also added the other bumpers.
Oh,
so you've got like a ZR and a ZL instead of just R and L.
That's right.
And then it also has faster internet as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they pretty much just like did everything to improve this. Oh, and it's got better sound as well. It can get louder and...
Just better all around,
basically. If I had to recommend a 3DS for most people, I would recommend the 3DS, the new 3DS XL.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to be really casual about it, the 2DSs are crazy cheap.
Yeah.
They are brand new for $80. Usually that comes with a game too. I mean, this is just dirt cheap, so if you're not sure if you'd like it, maybe this is the one to start with.
Yeah.
But if you're really looking to get into the handheld and play a bunch of games and stuff, I would definitely go with the new 3DS. And you don't have to do the XL. You can do either. It just depends on what you prefer. I like the bigger screen, but some people just like it being a little bit more portable.
Yeah, that's cool.
Another thing I want to mention, this is sort of important, is that these are actually region locked. It's basically the only handheld console that's region locked. So Japanese games are only going to work on a Japanese 3DS. American games are only going to work on an American 3DS. kind of sucks.
That does suck.
Yeah. And then the other thing is that it's backwards compatible too, so you can play your original DS games on this as well.
That's cool because there's like, what, almost 2,000 games?
Oh yeah, it really opens up the library, and we mentioned this in the DS buying guide. You don't necessarily need a DS if you got a 3DS.
That's true.
Okay, so now let's talk about some of the accessories. There are some good ones, but we'll start with the charger, which is...
Very important.
Yes, it is important. So, the nice thing about this, it's not like our DS buying guide, because...
I was so confused. So this they all use the same one?
Yep.
Yay!
Yay! All of them. The 2DS, the original 3DS, the new 3DS XL, they're all the exact same charger.
However... Nintendo screwed that up because if you go and you buy a brand new one today, it does not come with a charger.
If you buy a brand new 3DS, it does not come with a charger. And their rationale behind this is that you guys already have 3DSs. You already have a charger.
It's a little annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, what the heck? What if I'm trading in my old 3DS to get a new one? They require a charger when you trade it in. So.
Now, I'm curious, you just recently bought you bought a 2DS. Did that come with a charger?
Yes. It did. So they only did this for the new 3DS, I guess, because they assume that you're upgrading if you're buying a new 3DS. Okay. They're like, look, you've had like 4 years to buy a 3DS. We assume you've done so by now. So, but yeah.
Very important.
Yes. So then let's talk about this thing. This is really cool. This is the Circle Pad Pro. Do you have one of these?
I don't, because I tried to buy one when Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater came out, and that game really takes advantage of this. So, because as we mentioned originally, it did not come with a second analog stick, and third-person games like that, they really need one.
Anything that's shooting, or like one of my favorite games, Monster Hunter, basically anything where you need to angle a camera. I mean, it's important. So it works by interacting with the infrared sensor that's on the 3DS, and then it takes a AAA battery, and it adds that other bumper that they just put on the new 3DS. So basically, if you don't have a new 3DS, you might want one of these because this adds a lot of the features of the new 3DS.
It's interesting they did that. I mean, it was I guess a stopgap toward the new 3DS, but
it helped them develop some more like interesting games for the system, I guess. I mean, things like Metal Gear Solid and Monster Hunter just don't work very well without a second analog stick. So
no, I don't have one, but
but it's cool.
It is cool.
So then there's a newer accessory, and that's this right here. This is an NFC reader. This is also actually built in to the new 3DS system, so you don't need this if you buy one of the new 3DSs. But if you have one of the old ones and you want to interact with amiibos or amiibo cards, like the Animal Crossing ones here, you do need this if you're using an older 3DS. So it's just, we'll talk about it more when we get to the games, but but it's just another interaction.
Yeah, and actually the reason why this is out is because I use this all the time in the Kirby game. So cool.
All right, so let's talk about some of our favorite games. I want to start with Icarus Uprising.
Boy, this is controversial.
Is it?
A little bit.
I thought everyone liked this game.
No, because of its funky controls.
It is. It's kind of funky, and this is another one I really should have mentioned with the Circle Pad Pro. Strongly recommend you play it with a Circle Pad Pro. It also came with this stand because people kind of got
See, this is why
tired.
I'm shaking my head. Like,
but it's so good. It's Sakurai. He made Super Smash Brothers. He's really good at what he does. He made Kirby.
It's also amazing that they finally rebooted this series because it had been a long time.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it had been since the Game Boy. And even in Japan, they didn't even get that version of the game. So for Japan, this was the first time they had a Kid Icarus game since the Famicom.
Yeah, I mean, so many people were excited when they announced it.
Yeah. And it's cool. I mean, you're doing like sky and land battles. It's a really high action game, kind of like uncharacteristically so for a Nintendo game. So
I want to try it. But every time I've seen it, it's been without the little stand.
So like, you sort of need the whole thing. It also comes with an AR card before they stopped doing that. So it's a really complete game.
I'm not surprised. I mean, Nintendo always does that, right? So, okay. Should I go next?
Yeah.
All right. Oh my god, I love this game. I was playing this game today. So
I love this game too.
Kirby Planet Robobot. So, what can I say about this? I think this is like one of my favorite. I don't know if it's one of my favorite games of all time, but it's getting up there because I never play games multiple times, and I play this one multiple times.
It's so funny. I have that exact same thing with Kirby games in general.
Yeah.
I'm that way with like the 64 Kirby, but this and Triple Deluxe, which you said you haven't played.
I haven't played it yet.
But they're both so fantastic for Kirby games.
Yeah. Well, it's just so fun in this one. He jumps into, is it he, she?
I think officially it's a he, but I think he's
Kirby sounds like
sort
a
of genderless. I don't know.
Jumps into this powerful robot and then just kicks ass. That's what's so fun about it, right? But then he still gets all the powers of the things that he scans. It's so cool. The other thing I like about this is that it uses the 3D really well.
It does, because you can kind of go like jump back in the screen, and there's like a foreground and a background, which they've been doing for a long time in Kirby games. But I like that a lot.
Yeah, it feels really natural in this. I just love this game. Lots of things to unlock, levels to unlock, so many reasons to go back and play it. So I love this game.
All right, I want to talk about 2 games that are they're games, but they're really more just kind of like chill out life sim games.
I'm going to tell on you a little bit here. So when you were coming up to your list, you gave me this list of games you're going to show, and then I was like, well, where is Animal Crossing?
I figured I had already talked about Animal Crossing enough, but can't get enough of this. So Animal Crossing New Leaf, the best Animal Crossing so far.
Yep.
I've talked about it at length already, but you basically are just chilling out in a town. You can do things like collect fossils and fish and talk to your neighbors. You can plant flowers and build things in the town. I mean, it's really just kind of like a daily play for 10 or 15 minutes and hang out type thing.
Or if it, like you, how many hours did you put into it?
I think I'm sitting somewhere around like 400 or 500.
That's a good value right there.
Yeah, it's a lot.
They recently just patched it, or did an update.
There's a great update for this, which uses the amiibo cards and the amiibos. So now there's another reason to go back and get these amiibo cards. You can basically just create your dream town now, because you can say, hey, I really want Becky in my town, and you tap it on there. After you have to get into the game a little bit, but you get a few days into the game, and they give you an item that allows you to do this. But you say, I want this girl in my town. All right, she's in my town now.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, or they can give you items. But the really cool thing is that there's some new villagers. There's a Wolf Link villager.
Oh,
if you have the Wolf Link amiibo.
Yes.
There's the Splatoon sisters.
Okay.
The Squid sisters from Splatoon, and they didn't show this in the North American Nintendo Direct, but if you have the Monster Hunter Stories amiibo from Japan, you can also get a Monster Hunter feline in your town.
And here you said you weren't going to have anything to talk about when it comes to Animal Crossing.
But there was just an update.
I know.
Yeah. And then the other one is Tomodachi Life. This is so weird. Did you play this game?
I've heard so much about it.
Okay.
But no, I haven't.
This is such a weird game, and it's best played if you and a friend are also playing it, like at the same time, just so you can talk about the weird stuff going on in it. But it's cool. So you basically import Mii's, like your friends, who you've street passed with or you've played games with, and then you have just sort of like this island full of people that you know, and it's kind of like a Sims game. You just kind of watch them interact and do funny, weird things with them, but it's the humor in this is just ridiculous. So it's not so much a game as it is just kind of like a
social experience.
Yeah, no, it totally is. But it's great. I mean, you can write songs with them, and you can like have them go on little RPG adventures and like weird. It's so weird. I wish I had a better way to
I'll have to check it out.
You'll watch their dreams, and then you can like for me, I just kept taking so many pictures and sending them to my friends. Like I'd have my friend in my town, and they'd do something really stupid, like be rolling around on the ground and talking about applesauce, and I'd be like, "You're so weird. Look at this." So I don't know. It's really fun.
Very cool. All right, next up for me, there were so many Mario games. Which ones do we choose? Super Mario 3D Land was another game I just got obsessed with. I actually went on vacation. I bought this and I went on vacation, and I was over in Lake Chelan, which is very beautiful. Did I see any of it? No. I was
You just
playing.
looked at your 3DS.
I was just looking at this whole time. Such a great Mario game. It's a 3D Mario game, you know, like the classics, like Mario 64. What I like about this is that it uses the 3D very well. So again, turn on the 3D. It'll actually prompt you on certain levels to turn on the 3D. It's pretty funny. So
that's so weird.
I know it's designed.
They're really trying to push that.
And in typical Nintendo fashion, I think they just nailed it. Like, this is such a fun game, really easy to control, just long enough, like it doesn't overstay its welcome. Great game, highly recommended.
Definitely. All right, so the other action game I have, I guess some people consider this an RPG, but
I'm
it's
not
really
surprised to see this in your list here.
So this is Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. This is not the most recent Monster Hunter, and I would say if you're just getting into the series, maybe you need to go with the most recent one, just because that's what the people around you are going to be playing. This is such a good game, and it is hard to get into. So it's exactly what it sounds like. You are a monster hunter.
Right.
You hunt giant monsters.
Right.
But the multiplayer in this is incredible.
Well, you host every week a Monster Hunter gathering, right?
Yeah.
Like a bunch of people get together and...
Yeah, you can have 4 people at a time all taking on one giant monster. You do the sort of... it's almost a little bit like an MMO in a way, in that, like, the monster might drop this thing that you want.
Okay.
And the whole... Like, there's no end point, really. You're just like, okay, my armor's good enough to now fight this guy. All right, now I gotta build new armor so I'm strong enough to fight this guy. But the actual fighting mechanic is just so much fun. There's a bunch of different weapons to choose from. You can... deck yourself out in whatever cool armor, and the monsters are just really, really fun. It's challenging. Not quite as challenging as like a Dark Souls or something, but it's hard.
I've heard that.
And it's a really, really good multiplayer experience.
That's what I've heard. I know. I need to jump into that. But I think, to your point, I've always heard there is a big learning curve, and you need to do it with other people. So I need to come to one of your Friday events.
Yeah. The great thing about Monster Hunter is most people are really, really open to like helping you get into the series. I would sort of recommend trying to find someone who is willing to teach you a little bit, or watch Gaijin Hunter on YouTube. He'll go really in depth and kind of break it down and make it a little bit easier to understand.
All right. Well, next up for me is a game that a lot of people are very excited about. So that is The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds.
We can't not talk about this.
I know. I know. And this is, I hate to use the term love letter, but it's a love letter toward, back to the Super Nintendo, A Link to the Past.
Definitely.
And it feels like that, but they threw in a new mechanic where you can basically blend into a wall. And what I like about that is that it feels fresh. Like that new ability alone makes this really stand out.
Yeah, because otherwise I think it really almost would be too much like A Link to the Past.
Yes.
Which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Sure.
I mean, there are Zelda remakes that have done really well, but yeah, this one is considered to be like one of the best Zeldas in the last decade even.
Yeah, so there we go. So there's no hate in the comments.
Okay, so I am a big RPG person, and I had so much trouble narrowing it down to just 3.
There's tons of them. There's tons of them on the system.
All right, so the one you all should play is Fire Emblem Fates. There are 2 different versions of this game. If you were lucky enough to get the collector's edition,
you got both.
You get both on one cartridge, but otherwise you can buy either Birthright or Conquest. If you are new to the Fire Emblem series, Birthright. If you are a veteran to the Fire Emblem series or love really, really hard tactics games, then you can do Conquest. But so the kind of gimmick in Fire Emblem is that when you die, you're dead.
Permadeath.
That's it.
Yep.
So you start out with this army of people and you'll gain new people, but someone dies, they're gone. And this one introduced a lot of like difficulty setting things so that you can bring people back if you're like really new and you're too nervous to jump into that sort of thing. But it's really good. It's got a great story. It's got really good characters. There's like a romance element where you can pair them together, and then they'll create a child that's an even better version of their parents. So it's kind of cheesy, but it's a really good story, and I really like tactics games. Do you like tactics games? I
do, and actually I played several of these. Not that version, but I played them on the GameCube, and I forget, maybe there's like a Wii version.
There's a Wii one.
Yeah, and I actually I normally don't like permadeath games because they make you very nervous to do anything. However, in these games, because it's not real time, you get to think out, and sort of plan a little bit. I like it. Like it feels like you're invested. You know what I mean? And you try to make the best decision possible. And then if they die, you're like, okay, like I'm moving on.
Yeah, I tried I really tried to plan for this, and
Yeah, it's definitely a cool thing. So.
Yeah. All right, the other one that I should definitely talk about is Bravely Default. Have you played this one?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
So this one might be a little bit difficult to get into if you're not a big RPG person. It's very sort of, it's got some of the old school Final Fantasy elements
Reminded
to
me
it.
of that big time.
Yeah, and huge class system, which is actually really cool. There's a bunch of different classes, and you can sort of mix and match the abilities from them to create something really cool. So like, I remember I did one ability that was from like a ninja that made basically everyone miss me, and then was super powerful otherwise. So it's cool. It really gives you a really big amount of customization. Now, the problem people have with this game is it gets a little repetitive because you think you're at the end and you're not. That's all I'll say without spoiling it.
The other thing I was going to say is, I know I've talked about the 3D aspects, but this is one of the first games that I think a lot of people, when they turned on the 3D, were like, oh my god, it's so beautiful.
Oh, it really is. And the art style in this is gorgeous,
stunning.
Too.
I know.
Yeah. This is a really, really pretty game.
So that's the collector...
This is the collector's edition. I always have the collector's editions for things. But yeah, this one's cool. Comes with like a soundtrack, and you can sort of see the pretty art in it.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I like this game a lot.
Yeah. Okay, and then I wanted to mention Star Fox 64 3D. This is not necessarily like the most amazing game on the system, but it's a really good version of that classic game.
This is my preferred way to play it.
Absolutely. I mean, this is I was playing this again last night, and I was just amazed at the graphics. Like, it's like, oh my god, this game looks so great. And again, in 3D or whatever. It's a rail shooter. But we wanted to mention this because there were a lot of games on the 3DS that got sort of those HD, or remakes, I should say, right? Like, for instance,
Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, both of which are really cool. The neat thing that people like to say about Ocarina of Time is they left all the like glitches and stuff in it too.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh,
So I mean, this is like completely original. And we should mention this thing, since you have the Nintendo Selects version. There are a lot of games now, if you're getting into the 3DS library kind of late. They made a lot of these games only $20 brand new. If you see one of these with the red border, there's a lot of really good ones.
And actually, to that point, I wanted to buy that game sooner, but it never went down in price, or maybe only by $5. Because
before they did that, it was like a $50 game.
I know, and so all of a sudden it was like $20. I'm like, yes.
It's been really nice. It's keeping the prices nice and low on a lot of things.
Yeah. So when it comes to applications, we could spend a lot of time doing this because Nintendo has packed a ton of stuff into this.
Oh yeah, there's tons. I mean, you can do themes, Badge Arcade, there's YouTube and Netflix, and I mean all kinds of an activity log. There's this thing called Nintendo Video. I mean, there's all these things that exist as applications on this, but that may not be super important to you.
Right. And so we're going to cover 3 that we think are, must talk about. So what are those? Or do you want to start with the eShop, maybe?
Yeah, the eShop is probably something you've already heard of, and it's just an online service where you can download games. And you can download, actual 3DS games, or you can do virtual console games, which are old school games that you can just play on the go.
And it's impressive. Like, it's
so
not
impressive.
just like Nintendo consoles either. It can be like the Game Gear. It can be all these cool systems.
Yeah, so there's like Game Boy, Game Boy Color, NES. If you have the new 3DS, it's going to have Super Nintendo games on there as well, including Earthbound for like $10.
The eShop, I think, is one of the most impressive things about it, to be honest, because Nintendo just continually adds stuff to it. It's really cool.
Yeah, and most of them are really cheap too. I mean, it's tough to get a whole setup, with like Legend of Zelda on the original NES, or you can just buy it for a few bucks on the eShop on the 3DS you already own. So I think it's really cool. The other thing we should definitely talk about is Street Pass.
Oh, yes.
Which is a unique thing to the 3DS.
I love this aspect. It's so much fun. It's very social. I mean, it's cool.
So you guys probably already know what a Mii is if you've used a Wii or anything like that. You create a little avatar of yourself, and then it'll ask you a couple little questions. Do you prefer cats or dogs? What's your favorite color? What's your dream in life?
Yeah.
And, where you're from. And then when you walk past other people who have a 3DS, you guys will trade information. So it's
a little green light will turn on. And yes, and you don't have to be on the local Wi-Fi. Like you're not. It's just simply that we're close to each other that it picks these up.
Exactly.
And so when I go into the app, you will be there at the gate, and it's cool because, like for instance, when we go to expos or even like to the airport, you'll pick up a bunch of people from different parts of the country, of the world. It's so neat. You'll see what they're playing.
Yeah, and it'll help you sort of like if you're into that sort of thing. It also sort of acts as a collecting thing. So you'll collect people from around the world, and it'll fill in a little map of all the different parts of Japan or all the states in the U.S. or provinces. And,
it's very addictive.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then you can also fill in like birthdays. And then they added mini games to it too.
Right.
There were some that came stock with it. There's just these little panels that you fill in little puzzle pieces, and then it creates a cool 3D picture. And then there was also a little like questing mini game where you would just defeat monsters with the help of the people that you've picked up.
Which I played all of those. And there's a shooter. There's like a slot car racing game.
I like the zombie one a lot.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It just uses this data that you pick up automatically from other people. Your 3DS is sort of like in an always on kind of just pinging out to look for another person with a 3DS. Yeah. And then the other thing I definitely want to mention, I guess it's not quite an application, but friend codes.
Oh.
So that's something where you have like a specific code to your console and your Mii where you can now interact with people who are online. It's sort of just like the way they do their online.
Instead of a unique username, they have these long string of... Is it just letters and numbers?
It's just numbers.
Is it just numbers?
Yeah,
okay.
But it's cool in that a lot of games have kind of built upon it. So at first you just had to sort of trade friend codes and then coordinate like, hey, I'm about to go play Animal Crossing. Do you want to, also want to play Animal Crossing right now? Okay, let's add each other and play together. But now there's also this thing called best friends in a lot of the games, or they call it different things. But you can basically have someone like, this is a special person. Alert me when this person is online or playing this. So... It's gotten a lot better. So now
that sounds fun.
It's easier to deal with other people now too.
That's cool. All right, so where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Kelsey Lewin. I also just made a YouTube channel, finally.
You did?
It's just my name, Kelsey Lewin.
That's right. You did a Kirby video.
I did, and a Portland Retro Gaming Expo pickups video.
Yep.
I'll have new stuff soon. I've been busy. But yeah, so on Twitter, and then I also have a podcast, Game Blitz Show. You can find that on iTunes and Google Play and Stitcher and all that stuff.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys, for watching this. Thanks for subscribing, and take care. I want to thank Kelsey again for coming on my channel and helping with this video. We were so looking forward to this because, as you can tell, we both love collecting for the 3DS. We also mentioned in this video that we did a DS buying guide. So if you're interested in that console, you should definitely check that out because it's pretty cool. Also, we did a bunch of other videos, including one covering a complete original Xbox collection. That was a really fun video because we shot it in her Pink Gorilla store. So definitely check that out. All right, guys, thanks for watching.